Monday, March 23rd, 2026, and you are listening to Issues and Answers with Norman A. Carter Jr. through the auspices, the wonderful auspices of WCEG Digital Media Enterprises Incorporated. What a mouthful. We are the worldwide community empowerment group, and our broadcasts are designed to speak life into our community. For those of you who accidentally found us today and would like to be certain and intentional on finding us in the future, we are available on several platforms. You can log on to WCEGTalkRadio.com on your computer or mobile device and click the icon that says live. Watch us on your smart TV by accessing the WCEG channel via YouTube, Roku, Fanbase, Blue Sky, Twitch, or other popular streaming services. You can watch us live on Facebook and text in your questions and comments. Hope we have some of that today. All that is needed is for you to become a friend of WCEG on Facebook, and you will be an active part of our program. If you missed a live broadcast, you can always view our programs via YouTube at the end of each broadcast. Just search the WCEG Talk Radio Issues and Answers channel, and you'll find us there. If you have Alexa, just say, Alexa, play WCEG Talk Radio, and you'll have us. Just a reminder that all opinions on today's programs are mine and that of my wonderful guest. They do not reflect the opinions of the staff and management of WCEG Digital Media Enterprises. So leave my boss alone. If you are running for elective office, I've announced this before, and you want to share your platform with our viewers and listeners, please contact this station at 404-490-8646 or email at wcegtalkradio@gmail.com. Ladies and gentlemen, we have an honorable guest. I mean, truly honorable guest today on this program. I'd like to welcome Judge Regina Matthews to our program today.
Thank you so
Judge
much.
Matthews, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It is indeed my pleasure. Judge Matthews, please permit me to give our audience a brief bio, a brief bit of your background, so they know just who's sitting before us. Judge Matthews is a native of Chi-Town, where she matriculated with honors through the Chicago public school system, with honors. Keep that in mind. She relocated to Georgia in 2001 after completing her collegiate studies with high honors at the University of South Carolina in Columbia, South Carolina. Judge Matthews earned her Juris Doctorate degree from Emory Law School in 2004, having received several scholarships during her tenure to include the Emory Public Law Initiative Grant, wow, and the Georgia Association of Black Women's Attorneys Scholarship. These prestigious scholarships and grants helped her pursue paid summer internships, no breaks for her, with both the Chicago Legal Clinic, where she assisted attorneys in serving low-income residents in the Chicago area, sounds like President Obama, and an internship with the DeKalb County Public Defender's Office, representing indigent clientele facing criminal prosecution in DeKalb County, Georgia. Her bio is quite extensive, and we have limited time for this interview, but I believe it's important to note her education and experience, as this should be the first consideration when we are electing people in judgeships. Welcome, Judge Matthews. Great to have you.
Much. Thank you. It's a pleasure. And thank you for that bio. Sometimes I listen to it. I'm like, who is this person you're talking about? Can't be this little girl from the west side of Chicago. Oh.
Well, let me give this public disclaimer, because my first time, like really meeting you, you were just an average citizen walking in Snellville City Hall to help some disadvantaged folks, helping some children and other people at Christmas time. And I'm going, what? No fanfare, just being there. When you talk about being a public servant and not letting the right hand know what the left hand is doing. That's in the Bible. Yeah, that was very admirable, and I'll never forget that. But you are running for office, and you're currently a magistrate judge
Yes, correct.
in Gwinnett County. And could you please explain to our audience the difference between the office you hold and the office which you're campaigning for?
Yes, and interestingly, there isn't a lot of difference, to be quite frank. So, in Gwinnett, we have judges who serve in our magistrate court as part-time judges and those who serve in a full-time capacity. So, our part-time judges do the typical magistrate court functions, and then the six of us that are full-time magistrate judges, our primary duty is to offer judicial assistance to our other courts. And primarily, we sit in Superior Court because that's where the greatest need is. So, on a typical day for me, I am sitting presiding in Superior Court in one of the 11 divisions. So, we have 11 Superior Court judges who, were elected or appointed to the bench by the governor, and those are the divisions that I sit in. So every day I'm hearing family law cases, which could be divorce, child custody, child support, sort of anything you think about when you think of family law dynamics. That's a vast majority of what we hear in Superior Court. And then there's felony criminal prosecutions and all of the hearings that are associated with felony criminal prosecutions. And then the remaining, I would say probably like 15% of the caseloads are general civil cases. So it could be a contract dispute, a tort, an appeal from one of the lower courts in our circuit. Sort of the list goes on and on, but
Mhm.
essentially that is what I do every day.
So, if I'm understanding this correctly, you're running for Superior Court judge, which will make your workload primarily focused in a particular area. Is that correct?
That is correct. So our superior courts have exclusive jurisdiction over all family law cases, or some people refer to them as domestic cases.
Mhm.
Superior court judges have exclusive jurisdiction over felony criminal prosecutions. There are some other cases involving like disputes regarding land and title to land, and a couple of different other types of civil suits that can only be brought in Superior Court. So I'll essentially continue to do the work that I'm already doing and the work that I'm already knowledgeable about, having sat in Superior Court by designation for the past 6 years since I've been on the bench. I've heard
Mhm.
probably thousands of cases at this point in Superior Court. And so um, yes, I come to the bench in Superior Court with the requisite experience that I think constituents would expect when they go before a judge.
I think this is important, not just for right now for Gwinnett County, but for our audience to understand how courts function, uh, probably throughout the state and even in other portions of this country. Uh, because, in my opinion, and I have a law enforcement background, um, which I'll talk about a little bit later, but the public doesn't pay enough attention to these elections that are so, so, so important.
Agreed. And
Yes.
I'll tell, I tell people all the time that really, and I went to law school knowing this, but I certainly understand it a lot more now having done the work. Our courts serve a critical role in protecting the rights of everyday citizens, right? And without courts that are led by individuals who have the requisite skills, knowledge, experience, but also a heart for the people, a heart for service, we wouldn't be able to have confidence in our justice system. And I think it's important for the general public to have confidence in the justice system. And so it's always been my goal to make sure that we restore that confidence, that people feel like justice is truly justice for all, because that's what our Constitution requires. And I know that that may not always be the experience of folks who have gone before the court. But integrity is important, experience is important. Certainly upholding the rule of law is critically important. And we need judges who are committed to that because, I tell people all the time, judges really do make decisions that can impact your everyday life. And, whether that be, handling your divorce case or deciding a custody dispute, deciding who gets bond, right? That affects all of us in the community. If we care about safety and, protecting our children and our vulnerable populations, we have to be concerned that we have judges who are going to hold people accountable. And there's a way to do that, while aligning, compassion, right? Compassionate justice.
Mhm.
But, these decisions affect everybody in the community.
Yeah, I think that, and I'm not, blowing you up or anything, but I'm looking at your background, and I've always found that judges who have experience, such experience as a public defender or as defense lawyers, and even to some extent prosecuting lawyers. Although I think that if you have purely a prosecutorial background and going into a judgeship, it sort of jades you a little bit. But that's just my opinion. But someone who you, you have the sort of background where you've dealt with people on all different sorts of levels, some people who are just victims of circumstances in our society. And I think that some of those qualities um, really enhance the your knowledge and your view, because part of compassionate justice, and I want to make this clear with the audience, and you can elucidate on that too, is not about just saying, "Oh, they're so nice, we're going to send everybody home." No, that's,
Absolutely not.
that is not what you mean by compassionate justice. I think
No,
I
it is
wanted to
not.
make that clear.
Well, no,
Yeah.
thank you for that because it is an important distinction. You're right. I don't want people to get the wrong sentiment. What I mean is that there are people who come before the court who absolutely need to be away from the rest of the population because they
Mhm.
are a true danger to other people. And I, am the first judge to say that those people, without question, I'll sign the order sending them away, right?
Mhm.
Because it is important for me. I have children, and
Mhm.
I live in this community. I certainly care about us being protected from those who will do us harm. However, there are those folks, and this is just, I think I've been blessed to have a lot of different perspectives from my own upbringing and from the work that I did prior to taking the bench. What I realize is the vast majority of people who commit crime are not those people. There are some, but
Mhm.
a lot of people need intervention and they need treatment and they need rehabilitation. And with those treatment options, with those rehabilitative options, they are actually able to become productive members of our community. And what I find specifically with young people who enter the prison system at a young age and they have very lengthy sentences for nonviolent offenses, what happens is they become criminalized within the
Mhm.
prison system and they come out just being better criminals. I mean,
Yeah.
our data tells us that, we are very, we're high with incarceration in this country. We like to use incarceration, but it doesn't decrease our crime.
Mhm.
So there's a disconnect somewhere. And so, what I believe in is addressing the underlying roots as much as the courts can, that we do have some limitations, but to the extent that we can sentence a young person, for example, to a job training program, or we
Mhm.
can give them the tools that they need to get recovery if they're dealing with a substance abuse or a mental um, disorder. Those are the types of things we can do to intervene before we consider sending them to prison, because prison isn't always the answer for everybody. It is the answer for some, but not the vast majority of people.
I'll just comment that I had experience a couple of years ago speaking before the Gwinnett County, one of the court treatment programs, and speaking to uh, people who may have had drug issues and things like that, and got them off track. And it's a very good program, and I was just honored to be invited to speak before those young people. So yes, that's this is part of what compassionate justice is about. Uh, Your Honor, one thing that brought me to your attention this time was uh, a post that you put on social media about the high cost judges have to pay to qualify for an election. And I think this is something important our public needs to know. Um, would you care to speak on that issue?
Yes. And before I go there, let me just go back and say thank you for speaking to our accountability court groups. I am so proud of the work our accountability courts do in Gwinnett, because that
Mm-hmm.
is sort of what I'm talking about when I mean, compassionate justice. Because I have seen the transformations that have happened with
Yeah.
folks that have gone through our treatment courts. And so thank you for helping us spread the word about accountability courts, because they are making a big difference.
And they get a diploma.
Absolutely.
They get a
Absolutely.
certificate. Yes,
They do.
absolutely.
And that's a
Yeah.
that's a sense of pride for a lot of the participants too, because some of them
Yes.
didn't complete high school, right? And so having a certificate for some of them is like a first in a lifetime
Hmm.
occurrence. And
Yeah.
it gives them pride and a sense of dignity that, it's just really unmatched. But I can
Yeah.
do a whole, show about accountability courts. But to answer your question, yes. So a lot of people are uninformed about the process of how candidates get their names on a ballot. And to make it a long story short, it's really just, you go to the Secretary of State, you fill out an affidavit, an application, so to speak, and you have to attest that, you meet certain qualifications, but then attached to that is this requirement that you pay your qualification fee. And the fee is set by statute. So our legislators decided, what those fees should be. And it just so happens for judges, we have the highest fee in the state. And so our fee this year was a little over $6,000 to put our name on the ballot. And that is more than the governor pays, the attorney general, secretary of
Hmm.
state. Some of the truly statewide officers pay far less than we do. And obviously, I'm running in a race that's just in Gwinnett County. It's not a statewide race.
Hmm.
So yeah, there appears to be some disparity. I think it's astronomical to require a judge to pay that amount of money to put their name on the ballot, but it's set by statute. I'm told that it's based on a percentage of what the income is for that particular position. But the issue with Superior Court judges, for example, the salaries vary across the state. So not every Superior Court judge across Georgia is going to make the same thing. And it's particularly difficult for judges out in rural counties and jurisdictions, because they make far less than, uh, the judges in like Atlanta or some of the larger, judicial circuits.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's something that we hope gets looked at a little bit. My colleagues and I have been sort of griping about it for a while. So we'll see if our legislature is inclined to make any changes. We'll see.
Yeah. If we need some help on that issue, I'll be happy to testify. Absolutely.
Well, we
And
appreciate that.
yeah, and I'll talk about that a little bit later on in our program because uh, there's a danger in that, and I don't want to take up your time right now with that, but there's a huge danger in that, um, and that needs to change. But Your Honor, I just like to ask. There are two other candidates in this race with you, and so uh, what separates you from your other two candidates?
Thank you for that question. So I hope the voters are really listening right now, because this is important. So experience, it comes down to experience at the end of the day. And I always use the analogy, or I like to use the analogy of going, to a cardiologist for, some sort of heart surgery, right? If you're in the room with two physicians and one of them happens to be a cardiac surgeon, and let's say the other is a physician, but maybe they're just a general, family law, let's say not family law, family medicine practitioner.
Mhm.
Who are you going to want to do your open heart surgery? The cardiologist or the general, family law practitioner? Now, both have medical training, certainly both have some general knowledge about, medicine, but there comes a difference when you look at what the day-to-day qualifications are. And so I liken that to my race because I am the only candidate in the race who has judicial experience. And along with that, the only candidate who actually hears cases in Superior Court. And, I don't know, I would, as a voter, I would feel more comfortable going in front of a judge who I know has extensive experience handling my type of legal matter. You know, as I said, I've made probably thousands of rulings in Superior Court at this point before taking the bench. I practice family law. That is a majority of the cases that are heard in Superior Court. I did family law, I did criminal law. I served as a law clerk. I served as a federal law clerk. I'm tried,
Mhm.
tested, and true. There's not a case that's going to come before me in Superior Court that I will be unfamiliar with. And I think voters need to know that experience matters. When you're coming to court and you want a fair, experience, you want a judge who's going to make the right decision, you should go with a candidate that's tried, tested, and true. And if you ask my colleagues on the bench, across the bench in Gwinnett, if you ask the attorneys who appear regularly in front of me, some of whom, get decisions that are not favorable, but they will still
Mhm.
tell you Judge Matthews knows the law. She is fair. She is prepared. Even though I may not always win my case in front of Judge Matthews, I know that she's paying attention and that she's going to follow the law. And so, the other two candidates just don't have that type of experience that Gwinnett voters can trust. That's the biggest difference.
Yeah.
There are others, but that's the most important, if you ask me.
I'd like to add for my Gwinnett County residents and probably also in Georgia that this election is very, very important and you need to pay attention to what the judge is saying. But you're going to have an opportunity over the next 2 years to elect two more judges in Gwinnett County. HB 1057 just passed, and that I know it affects Gwinnett County, but I'm going to bet that it also affects other counties in Georgia where they're going to be adding additional judges based on the size of the community. So, ladies and gentlemen, this will be good practice in voting for judges and paying attention. Uh, Judge Matthews, do you have any closing remarks? I know you have a busy schedule.
Yes, well, thank you for this opportunity once again, Councilman Carter. I really appreciate it. I always welcome the opportunity to engage with members of the community. And so I know we're, limited with our time, but if anyone ever wants to reach out to me, has questions about my candidacy, my background, my experience, whatever the case may be, I'm an open book and you're always free to reach out to me. Obviously, you all know where to find me. I'm usually at the courthouse in downtown Lawrenceville just about every day, sitting on the bench. But what I would like voters to really know about me, other than the fact that, I'm a judge you can trust, is that, I am like an everyday citizen. You started off by saying, Councilman Carter, that, when I'm not on the bench, I'm just like you, right? I have a family that I love very much. My husband and I, we live in the community. We raise our kids here. We really care about Gwinnett, and we care that, Gwinnett is represented by the best leadership across the board. We also care very deeply about, serving our community, in whatever way that we can, So I'm not just the judge who sits high and looks low, I'm out here serving people and answering the call to everyday needs of our citizens. And, I could talk probably 30 minutes about the stuff that I do off the bench, when I'm out there serving the community. But it's
Mm.
two things are really important to me, making our community better and leading leaving our next generation of leaders prepared and equipped to take over when we, are old and gray and not able to do the work anymore. So mentorship is extremely important to me. It's important for me to educate our young people about the lures and dangers of, activities that can lead them to the criminal justice system. And so I do all of that. And I do it because not because I want recognition or people to say my name in rooms when I'm not there. I do it because I truly, truly care about people and I care about this community. And so beyond, my qualifications, right, and my educational background, I just really want people to know that, I'm not only the judge who's going to be prepared and knowledgeable about the law, but I'm also the judge who cares about people. And I roll up my sleeves every day and I do the work on and off the bench. So I would love to have your support, Gwinnett County. Early voting starts in just a little over 30 days, actually. April 27th is when early voting starts, and Election Day is May 19th. Please support me by, casting your vote. But also, if there are other ways you're interested in helping out with the campaign, certainly reach out to me. Love to have your help in spreading the word about our campaign because this is an important race and we cannot afford to sit out.
Can you give us your website?
Yes, judgematthews.com. And it's Matthews, not Mathis. I get a lot of people saying, like, oh, you're that famous TV judge. And I'm like, nope, that's not me. He makes way more money than I do.
No, no,
So
no. Yeah.
judgematthews.com, and you can find out a lot of information, more about me, more about how to chip in and help. I'm also on all the social media platforms just about. So Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok. I even have a TikTok account. I didn't ever think I would do that, but the young people said you got to reach us on TikTok. So
Yeah.
I have a TikTok account now. So anyway, that's how you all can find me. And again, Councilman Carter, I really appreciate the opportunity to chat with you.
Thank you so much. It was my pleasure having you, and good luck in the election coming up very, very soon. Thank you
Very,
so much, Your Honor. Thank you
thank
so much.
you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
That was educational, and I hope everyone's paying attention and will really pay attention to these judicial races. While I'm at it here, I made an announcement last week, and I'd like to make it again. And this is dedicated to our young folks, but um, it's for our young folks. But some of you older adults are going to have to help us out with this. Girls breaking chains. I mentioned them in our last program. Girls breaking chains. It's composed of uh, a program started by Mrs. Tanisha Estrada, and this program is for girls who have parents, particularly fathers, especially, who are incarcerated. And she's been on our program and told her life story and how that brought her to establish this group. But to this year, her organization, Girls Breaking Chains, has an excellence scholarship of $1,500. The deadline for applying is May 1st, 2026. Pay attention. Um, all that is necessary is you must send a 2 to 5 minute video describing how this award will empower you to rise above your parents' incarceration. The requirements are easy. You must be a female senior in high school in Georgia. You must have a grade point average of 2.5 or higher. You must have a college acceptance letter, and you must have a parent who is incarcerated. And once you have all that information and fulfill all those requirements, please send that information to the following email address. It's info, info, at girlsbreakingchains.org. That's info at girlsbreakingchains.org. Deadline is May 1, 2006. And I'm sure that many of you may know someone who can benefit from this program. Uh, Lots of news going on here, and I know that I usually go off on a tangent every once in a while. Um, and here I go again on WCEG Talk Radio with Norman A. Carter Jr. Again, I want to thank Judge Matthews for her contribution today and educating all of us on how our judicial system works and the importance of paying attention to judicial elections. Now, I need all of you hypocrites to explain yourselves and qualify or clarify to what branch of Abrahamic faith do you belong? How many more immoral and classless and often murderous action must this president commit before you have the decency and moral courage to say that you made a mistake? And please don't give me that specious crap about we'll just pray for him. He is killing people and rejoicing in the death of others. You need to pray for yourselves and for a return to the moral decency that permeates Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. If you spent more time praising God rather than praising a man, all of us would be better off. And this is where I'm going to talk about death and injury and how making a bad decision can cost people lives. Most of you today have heard the news that at LaGuardia Airport, there was an accident where a plane carrying 70 passengers collided with a fire truck while landing in New York's LaGuardia Airport late Sunday. Killed the pilot, killed the co-pilot, and injured several other citizens. I understand this plane was on the runway, and that slowed down tremendously. It was only moving about 30 miles an hour. At the same time, there was a fire truck that was given permission to proceed to an emergency on another plane that was given permission to cross a runway. Forty passengers and crew were injured, and two officers on the fire truck were injured. They were taken to hospitals, some with serious injuries, and most were released Monday morning. Now, why is this important? How many of you shrugged your shoulders when the President of the United States laid off hundreds of air traffic controllers after a helicopter and passenger plane collided over the Potomac River in Washington, D.C.? On January 29th, 2025, there was a tragic mid-air collision between a helicopter and an airliner, and that resulted in the deaths of all 67 people aboard both aircraft. Think about that. And after that, the president decided, oh, well, we need to lay off some air traffic controllers. With all the difficulty they have in hiring people and the high standards for that, to be an aircraft traffic controller, and he just makes a decision he's going to fire. Now, can we blame that on Sleepy Joe? Now, presently, we are at war with Iran. It's not just a little military action, as he says, it's a war. Hundreds, if not thousands, of civilians are being killed each day by American bombs. Let's not forget about that school where hundreds of kids were killed by what was likely an American bomb. But this is about idiocy, folks. 2 weeks ago, the president stated that we had met our objectives in bombing Iran. Their navy had been obliterated. Well, now no shipping can progress through the Strait of Hormuz because this passageway for international shipping of oil and other products has been filled with mines. Donald Trump, the draft dodger, stated that shipping companies were cowards. Keep this in mind. Donald Trump, the draft dodgers, stated that shipping companies were cowards for not allowing their ships to pass through this death trap. Can you imagine how brave was this guy? How committed was he to the American ideals of service? Yet he wants people to basically risk their lives sailing through a death trap. At one point, Donald Trump threatened the Iranian leadership with military action because of the way they were treating civilians who peacefully protested government actions. Now, keep in mind, Iran is not they're not good, their leadership are not good people. They're brutal people. Yet, these citizens that we're supposed to be trying to help, we've killed many of them. We killed many of those same innocent people. Do you remember just a week ago, the president stated he was winding down operations in Iran while his administration was saying that thousands of troops were on their way to Iran? What is the truth? Now, both the president and the president of Israel want to destroy the electrical power grid in Iran. That means an entire country will be in darkness in the winter. It will take years to recover if that is done. That's how you create terrorists. Look at history. That's how you create terrorists. You make people desperate. In addition, him and Israel want to destroy the oil facilities in Iran. Now, how much sense does that make? If you think oil and gasoline prices are high now, wait until these power-hungry idiots destroy oil fields. You see, the president, do you think he pays gas at the pump at any time in his life? He probably doesn't even drive a car. I'm going to say the same for Netanyahu. They don't care. They are immune from this type of suffering. It's amazing. 13 Americans have died in this war. Many more will die if the president has his way and puts troops on the ground. Yet, as if he is a mafia don, the Republican legislators, and yes, I am calling them out, will not hold this president accountable no matter what he does. Doesn't matter what he does, how immoral it is, how murderous it is, they won't hold him accountable. That's why you have ICE killing 2 people, videotaped killings, and nothing is going to be done about it. And these were all unarmed people. That's why you have ICE right now, because the airports are overwhelmed because the security workers, the people who control the security gates, aren't getting paid. A lot of them aren't coming to work. So what do? They sent ICE agents to the airport, untrained, don't know what to do. And if you see pictures of them this morning at the Atlanta airport, they're walking around, looking at the ceiling, looking at the people. I saw one thing on the news commentator didn't say about it. One person who was standing in line as these two ICE agents walked between him and another a person waiting to get to board a plane. The man pulls out a cell phone and starts taking a picture of the ICE agents, and they turn around and chastise him for taking their photo. I was a cop for how many years? 25 years. People took my photo all the time. What's the problem? Why are they special? Why? And the reason that we're having this problem, and we keep getting away from it because the Republicans are blaming the Democrats. The Democrats are blaming the Republicans. Here is the fact, everybody. Here is the fact. The ICE agents, they're getting paid. They're getting paid right now because there was 75, I think it's 75 million and $75 billion put aside for them to do whatever, dedicated solely to ICE. And the bill before the Homeland Security bill that's before Congress right now is up for approval. And the only thing that the Democrats are asking is number one, have the ICE agents take off their mask, as any other law enforcement officer would have to do. Number two, wear body cameras for all agents, like any law enforcement officer has to do in this country. And number three, unless there are exigent circumstances, and you law enforcement people know exactly what I'm talking about, unless there are exigent circumstances, get a warrant. If you're going to break into people's houses, drag them out of cars, and arrest them, get a warrant. It's in the Constitution. It's in the Constitution. And while I'm in the subject of warrants, don't need a script for this one. Breonna Taylor, have we forgotten her? Louisville, Kentucky, murdered by police officers, and the murder was covered up by a Republican district attorney who had the honor of speaking at the Republican convention several years ago. For those of you who know nothing about the law, these officers supposedly looking for narcotics, serving a warrant, got a no-knock warrant without stating why they needed to get one, and served that warrant after midnight. After midnight, in the middle of the night. Anyone in law enforcement tells you that's bad right off the bat. And despite what they say, the police officers say that they announced at the door or they knocked at the door to say that they were police. Well, in that apartment building where Breonna Taylor lived, no one heard anyone announcing themselves as police. I was once a narcotic officer. Let me tell you, when we raided a house with a search warrant, you could hear us a block away yelling police for two reasons. Number one is you want to make going in as easy as possible. So maybe the people will open the door. But number two is for your own personal safety. You don't want people to think that there's somebody breaking in their home. Going into someone's home is a very serious thing. I don't care if you are a criminal. But here we have Breonna Taylor. After midnight, she was a working person, not involved in any criminality at all. The police officers didn't announce themselves. They broke the door open. She was in bed with her boyfriend, thinking that there was a their house was being broken into by a criminal. The man in the house jumped up, grabbed his pistol, and fired a shot. What would you have done? Unannounced, somebody breaking in your door? Well, these officers with this bogus warrant, because it was bogus, come in the house, they shoot him, the guy with the gun, he gets shot. Police officer gets shot, I think. We can go back to that. But the point was, Breonna Taylor was murdered by these police officers who recklessly came into this woman's house. Well, of course, the family sued, and everything is in the courts. But the United States Justice Department, which is actually has become the president's personal, personal tool, and has decided that these officers who killed Breonna Taylor and who broke into her apartment with a bogus warrant should not be held accountable for their actions. That's just crazy. Anyone, any police officer, any police executive, any civil rights lawyer, in fact, any lawyer at all, will tell you the parameters of search warrants, what you can and cannot do. The person who signed the warrant, they need to be held accountable too. It was bogus throughout. Whoever signed the warrant didn't pay attention. It was the wrong house. There was no drugs. The person they were looking for, we found out, was in a police station somewhere else. He wasn't even there. He wasn't even there. So we have a woman, gainfully employed, good citizen, murdered. I think she was an EMS worker, murdered by police, and the police officers are not being held accountable. They're somewhere now drinking beers and laughing. And it's sad. It's sad. I hope you guys, all of you, will once again pay attention to the coming judicial elections. And the judges are running in what we call a primary. It's a primary election for everybody else, but it's the end all and be all for other judges. For judges, they don't have it for another election in November. This is it for them. So this election is important, and if you care about your community and the safety of your community, you really need to pay attention. Please pay attention to this year's judicial elections. And also, come November, you really need to pay attention to those legislators running in your federal government and in your state government. Because, folks, people are trying to take away or make it difficult for you as an American citizen to vote. They're trying to take away your right to vote or make it very difficult for you. And we need to pay attention because these people are so bold. They're not hiding what they're about. You're not. So anyway, this is a short program today. I hope it has been educational for all of you. Again, I want to throw out there that anyone running for elective office, not only here in Georgia, but throughout the United States, for any office, I invite you to give us a call. WCEG Digital Media Enterprises. Check out our website, and I'll be glad to have you here on Issues and Answers. And let me close out with something that I started off with, because I started off with this last week, the last program. But this, I believe in this from the bottom of my heart. Lift every voice, regardless of race, religion, or country of origin, and sing till earth and heaven ring with the harmony of liberty. That's everyone on one accord, pulling in the same direction with different voices and different cultures, blending into a symphony of brotherhood and sisterhood. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies, so that even God Almighty and the heavenly host take notice. And let us march on till victory is won. We still have a long way to go, but we must press on and keep hope alive. Thank you for joining us on this installment of Issues and Answers. Look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks. Till then, take care of yourself, be smart, enjoy your families.